Assalamualaikum and welcome back to We Hear You. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us in conversation, listening wherever you're getting this podcast feed on. It has truly been a pleasure to take you through some of the great conversations with our business leaders. And now it's time to take a step back and look at a bigger picture. The MSMEs in general. How are we doing, MSMEs? What's our health check like? And are we ready for growth? Because when you think MSMEs, especially within the Malaysian context, you don't really think so much about growth. Oftentimes, it's about survival and it's about making sure there's enough food on the table on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. But growth has become a large part of the conversation now as MSMEs are ready to shift gear and move forward. So we're going to find out what that health check looks like and if there is a tool to manage all the metrics involved. Because of course, what institution actually puts their thinking caps on and helps focus on the MSMEs? Are you left to your own devices? We're going to find out in this conversation. Joining us, we have Maslina, who's the head of macro monitoring and analytics with SME Bank. And we also have Muhammad Salman, the manager of economics department with Pemodalan Nasional Berhad. Thank you for joining us in conversation. So let's just start off with something simple. Let's help the MSMEs tuning in to understand what your organizations do to actually help and benefit them. We'll start with SME Bank.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me here. So when we talk about SME Bank itself, it is a development financial institution, right? So the role itself goes beyond commercial banking. So we do provide financing to areas where other financial institutions may hesitate, such as for those under served segments, high risk but high growth areas, things like that. And providing support to these segments is not only social, but it is also a strategy for economic growth, because most of the time these SMEs, they are productive, but they are constrained. And they also, they employ a large share of workforce. So by helping them, it means that we also help job creation in the economy. So economic research department, my role in SME Bank, we turn data into actionable insights. We try to provide guidance to internal strategy, as well as something that can help the national in terms of MSMEs development strategies. So we look at macroeconomic data and we try to identify vulnerabilities that are affecting the SMEs in terms of cost pressure, demand shocks, supply shocks, and things like that. So this is where SME Sentiment Index comes to the picture.
Okay. Untuk makluman para pendengar dan penonton kita, MSME yang dimaksudkan adalah perniagaan mikro, kecil dan sederhana. So it is quite a broad bracket. Boleh cuba kita fahami apakah yang dimaksudkan dengan jenis perniagaan yang berisiko tinggi tapi tergolong dalam kategori mikro, kecil dan sederhana?
Okay, businesses yang risiko tinggi tapi high potential ni businesses yang macam is in underline in government national agenda, for example. So macam green economy, lepas tu solar, things like that. Benda-benda tu they are still at quite a nascent stage. So maybe other institutions, they akan a bit hesitant to provide financing when there is no proof of how that businesses have gone up so far. But for SME Bank, this is where we need to help, because this is to support government agenda. We have a particular target where we need to reach certain, for example, renewable energy by we are looking to have solar to replace LNG and coal moving forward. So we need to provide those financing for them in order to achieve those targets. So that's where we come in.
Okay, what about PNB? How do you help the MSME?
Assalamualaikum and good morning. So thank you, Terence and Mazina, for inviting me to this beautiful studio. So, and actually I and Mazina used to work before in PNB, but different teams. So my main coverage is looking into the Malaysia economy, and specifically looking to indicators like growth, inflation, investment and trade, and translate that into the investment ideas to our internal stakeholders. But to be honest, my involvement in supporting the MSME is quite limited. Except for maybe I help my friend with his business, or I'm a big fan of makcik nasi lemak tepi jalan. So I buy all the nasi lemak from them. On the serious note, through PNB, we do share some of our view with the government, especially during the budget. So prior to budget, we share some of our budget recommendation to the government as well. Yeah.
This pertains to MSMEs, and I understand there are now a lot of pakcik nasi lemak as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to try the various recipes, as we all are. But that is, of course, the core MSME. When you think MSME, you think small business, like really small business, just starting out day to day, just worrying about putting food on the table every day. So maybe if we expand into things like green technology and all that, it is already kind of big in terms of funding. But for the micro SME, is there a tool? We've heard about this SME Sentiment Index survey. What is that all about, Masina?
Okay. SME Sentiment Index is actually one of our flagship products. We started back in 2022. Back then, we just did it once a year. And then from 2023 onwards, we do it twice a year. So in the first few rounds, we managed to get about 400 to 500 respondents, business owners that participated in that survey. And then over time, the numbers gradually increase. Of course, with the help of other division within the bank, because it's very hard. I think if you are aware, it's actually the numbers like 400, 500 respondents for a survey is a pretty standard in the bank. So to go beyond 1,000 is actually quite tough. But we managed to do so because a lot of other divisions help us to do so. So for this time around, for the first half 2026, we managed to get about 1,803 respondents that come across 40 subsectors. And the survey was conducted from January all the way to April. So it is timely because, we had US-Iran war during that period of time. So that has, in fact, the sentiment was primarily influenced by that impact of that war.
That must have been something, because that is a huge macroeconomic factor.
Yes.
And we rarely try to boil it down to how it affects the man on the street. I mean, there are surveys out there, but they are mostly online, and there's no in essence, credibility, because you're a financial institution carrying out these surveys. So it really does add credibility to the fact of the matter. When we look at these macroeconomic factors, how often have there been studies to show the correlation between how businesses adapt to these factors, these are huge external factors, and their own business growth or prospects? Is that, pressure that comes in with the macroeconomic factor the key catalyst for why a lot of small businesses call it quits and try to move into other sectors? Your opinion?
I think MSME is now becoming more careful instead of growing aggressively. Before this, growth naming, opening new outlets, hiring more people, and buying more stock. But and they will ask, how do I go? But under the current environment where things getting tougher, businesses will ask a different question: how do I go, but still protecting my cash flow, still protecting my profit margins, and also protecting my supply chain. So for context, this is not the first challenging period or challenging episode that MSME need to gone through for the past 6 years actually. So we started with COVID, and then 2022 and 2023 we had the Ukraine-Russia war that impact the commodities and food supply. And then last year, and still ongoing, that another second tariff episode that impact the trade uncertainties, and some businesses has already pushed back the investment and expansion plan. And this year we are having the Middle East conflict that impact our key commodities like oil, gas, fertilizers, and petrochemicals. So I think MSME now becoming actually they becoming tougher, but they still being cautious on certain things. So number one, it's about to protect their cash flow. So under the current environment, cash is king. They need to pay the suppliers, to pay the workers, to pay the daily expenses. So they need to accumulate the cash buffers before thinking about expanding their business. And then at the same time, they also need to manage the cost, right? With the expectation of a rising cost in the future, they enter into long-term contract to to lock the price. So they front load their orders, because pass through the cost to consumer is also very hard. They for existing businesses to the competitors that maintain the old prices. And secondly, in terms of manpower, they are not hiring aggressively, but they also not lay off their workers, right? In terms of because these key workers is very hard to find a replacement for them, so they need to retain first before thinking about growth later. And the third thing is about financing becoming more important. So we see more of working capital support and financing scheme being introduced to keep those businesses running. So overall, I think MSMEs are surviving too small, but practical steps. So they might need to be patient first before thinking about growth later on.
Oh, that's a true answer with regarding to the sentiment on the ground. But what does the survey say? What have the SMEs actually responded in saying how resilient they really are? How many have lost confidence in their own business, or how many have actually turned the challenges into opportunities? Maslina.
Okay, so the main findings of the survey, okay, the index itself went down to historic low at 45.1, but this is not the first time that it went below the 50 expansionary threshold. The first time we had it was back in second half 2023. So at that point of time, we had this semiconductor down cycle, as well as normalization period after a strong recovery post-pandemic. We started this survey in 2022. So at that point of time, it was booming because, we just recovered from COVID, all the businesses came back. And so it started very high. And then all the way it came down slowly, gradually, because the base was high. And then second half, it then below 50 because of the down cycle and normalization. And then after that, it started to go up again. So one of the main factors that has dragged the sentiment down is the economic growth expectation. So this time around, about 58% expect the economy to slow down, and only about 32% expect the economy to grow. So this is a reversal compared to what it was in the previous survey. In fact, 4 rounds of the previous survey where the SMEs foresee the economy to continue to grow, even though there are some up and down, but still going. But despite that weaker economic sentiment, most of the SMEs still foresee sales to increase. In terms of number of respondents that foresee sales to increase came down, of course, is in line with the growth sentiment, but most of them are majority still foresee it to increase. And interestingly, when we look deeper in terms of businesses that have exposure, as well as those primarily in domestic market. So those with exposure, they are more upbeat in terms of their sales expectation. 55% expect sales to grow.
Wow.
In comparison to the domestic, those who mainly involved in domestic market, about 38% only foresee the sales to grow. That's one thing. And then in terms of the cost angle, raw material, still the primary cost concern. But then in this survey, we noticed that more respondents foresee the costs of transportation and logistics to go up. So in the previous round, only 14% foresee that to go go up, but this time around 21%, and we think it's quite substantial lah. And it's because of the ongoing war. It has pushed up the prices and all kan. So it has started to reflected lah in the sentiment. And besides that, I think the labor conditions, the labor expectation has also shifted. This time around, they prefer to maintain their workers at current level, status quo. They are not hiring. This is also a reversal compared to previous survey where they were keen to hire. So now they just want to focus on retaining their staffs. So it is not too bad lah for me, because I think like what Salman said pun, if it's too bad, means they will quickly, move to cutting down employees. So now they are still looking to maintain it, and it can be due to a lot of reason. But I think it is not only because of the geopolitical developments, but it is also because they are a bit concerned on the labor-related reforms that the government is undertaking. So, for example, like the minimum wage revision, and then the mandatory EPF contribution for foreign workers. So these are the areas that many SMEs are affected, and this was reflected in one of our questions also, that we asked whether this kind of policy related reforms are, how is it affecting your businesses, right? So they are a growing share of respondents feeling that this is a negative thing to them. But they still, despite that, they still looking to maintain it. And I think the last important thing that we get from this survey is on the shifting priorities. So this time around, most of the SMEs they choose digitalization and technology adoption as their top priority, overtaking business expansion and marketing expenses. So previously, marketing and business expansion has led the priorities all the round. So this time around, there is a shift lah on that.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of cautious optimism, I think, in the market. But in terms of looking beyond the headline sentiment, from your opinion, from a broader economic perspective, Salman, how are today's economic conditions really shaping the way businesses make decisions, or should make decisions, if they are not already doing so?
Okay, challenge now is not just about price, but also about the input availabilities, delivery times, and also concern whether the price will hike again later. So comparing in 2022, because we had almost similar nature of shock, the oil prices back then was around $100 per barrel, and but that time we still have enough supply. So this time is a bit complicated because we have both price and supply constraint. But just recently, you see oil prices come down to $80 per barrel, and I just checked this morning, about around $72 per barrel because of the positive development over the Middle East. When key commodities like oil, gas, fertilizers, and petrochemical get affected, it's actually impact across the business supply chain, right? For instance, oil impact transport and logistics. Petrochemical is very important for packaging and plastics, and fertilizer is very important for food and agriculture. Right? It's not just petrol price in petrol pump, but also wider to the economy. And even microphone here have some element of petrochemical.
True.
Right? So and secondly, I think businesses are in dilemma whether to pass through the cost to consumer or to absorb everything. So just to share with you some experience. I think one experience from my friends, he just started a new business just a few weeks before the war started.
Oh dear.
And the cost that time, 200,000, the initial capital. And somehow the war happened and the cost jumped to 220,000. So that 20,000 in just a few weeks, So These include everything, you know, from renovation costs, from CCTV, from woodwork, from signboard and everything. So the big question he has is, you know, how who are gonna bear this 20,000 cost, right? Is it a business owner? Is it a customer or supplier? So because if he pass everything to consumer, right, definitely for existing business will lose some market share to their competitors that still maintain the price. But if he absorb everything, definitely the profit margin will be squeezed, right? So you get smaller margin and it's difficult for you to grow in future. So there's a few options here. Number one, I think they can delay the price hike, you know, make it staggered. Instead of increase by 100 ringgit, you can make it 20 ringgit per 6 months. And secondly, I think they can reduce wastage, focus, prioritize on the important thing first. You plan your cash flow, and I think they also can find other suppliers, alternative suppliers that still offer the whole price. And that's why we see, you know, the headline inflation, CPI remain manageable. We don't see inflation spiking up in the latest May numbers. True, around 2% is long-term average. Part of it because of government subsidy remain in place, and secondly, I think businesses are not passing through everything yet. Because if we compare into the producer price index (PPI), which more related to business, has already spiked up to 5.4% in April. This reflected from, you know, higher transport costs and energy related costs. And if we go deeper and we compare it to the long-term historical data, we see quite limited pass-through from higher PPIs. It's about 30% to 40% pass-through rate from higher PPI to CPI, the what we pay lah, CPI. And in terms of how do they manage the cost, and you know, this will the impact would be manageable for now. And another thing, we need to look into growth perspective, right? While growth remain to be supportive, the latest numbers 5.4, 5.4%.
National growth?
Yeah, national growth.
Yes, the first quarter.
Yeah, first quarter 5.4%. And but the impact will be uneven across sectors.
Right, true.
So the sectors that, you know, still doing good, like E&E, growing double-digit growth in our latest export numbers, and for many months. So E&E benefiting at the moment. But the sector that really depends on Middle East related inputs like oil and gas, fertilizer, and petrochemical would feel some pressure. So this is where the MSME adaptation story comes in. They, you know, they protect their workers, they protect their cash flows, and being selective before spending. So overall, I think resilience is becoming more of their growth strategy. So they are not pulling back from growth, but growth need to be smarter in future. Yeah.
So I gather from that answer, every cycle is different, and this one is a more informed cycle because all the people on the ground, especially the MSMEs, have more information to work with, so they are able to sort of bob and weave better when it comes to all these challenges hitting them all at the same time. So we're going to take a short breather. When we come back, we're going to dive further in. I understand this topic is very technical in nature, but it's going to help you understand your business, not just your business, but the sentiment of business around you. So if you're in business, I reckon this is a topic you really want to pay attention to. We're going to do a quick health check on how the Malaysian SMEs are taking in growth and vis-a-vis the challenges that they're facing today. So don't go anywhere. We hear you. We'll be right back. Welcome back to We Hear You. Thank you for staying with us. We are conducting a little bit of a breakdown of this important pulse check on the business sentiment. And also, this pertains to the MSMEs. So most of you listening. The MSMEs, of course, are the micro, small, and medium enterprises, which really shape the backbone of our country. A huge chunk of businesses in this country do fall within this category. So I hope that you take away something from this conversation. We have two very economically sound guests today. We've got Mazlina and Salman. Mazlina's from SME and Salman is from PNB. So let's dive back into the conversation. So when we left off, Mazlina, I was talking about these cycles that we have gone through as a country. And also, this definitely impacts the business. So we've gone through periods of bust and boom, and we're going through one right now as well. So from your survey, what has been the growth of MSMEs like after a bust or a crunch? Was it better than before or just back to normal, back to status quo?
Okay, it depends on sectors. Some sectors, they do grow better than what it was, rather than the bust that they have experienced, and then they rebounded and they rebounded to even better. Okay, for example, like I was mentioning earlier about E&E, they had a down cycle, and at that point of time, the growth was pretty low. But then when they rebounded, but it also influenced by many other factors. Like it's not only within the business alone, but because like E&E, you are integrated in the global supply chain. So when there's demand for this AI and all that, and because Malaysia is in a critical position within the global supply chain, so we tend to benefit from that. So we recovered, and we recover even better than that. So continuous double-digit growth and all that. That is one. And then another one is they grew back, but they grew to where they were before. So just like probably like just sustaining that growth. And the other angle is they have yet to fully recover. Maybe on certain papers, like in terms of GDP and all that, you have recovered. But if you look deeper, for example, like tourism related sectors, especially accommodation, so they, in terms of occupancy rate, I think they have yet to fully recover to that level. But of course, there are some structural issues in play as well. It's not only because they dah jatuh teruk then nak bangun tu susah, but because of other structural issues like, like last time, you probably travel alone and then you need one room. Now you travel in family, but in terms of numbers to increase, but you still occupy one room. So the occupancy rate is not there yet.
Yeah, certainly tourism has had a very challenging period because the cost of fuel not only is going up, so that vis-a-vis translates into ticket prices, but the very fact that the routes are affected. So tourism coming in from certain parts of the world are totally shut down or were shut down at some point. But now things are slowly opening up. Let's hope tourism as a sector generally has a better year moving forward. Anyhow, when you spoke earlier, Mazlina, you did allude to the fact that businesses are now focusing on digitalization, and that's become a key sector that is also enjoying double-digit growth because all these digital products are essential. We're talking about things like not just online marketing, but also cybersecurity, data farming, and things like that. So across these many economies, not just ours, competitiveness becoming increasingly important as it is, drives this digital shift and narrative. How do you see the investments into digitalization and how digitalization has actually helped businesses sustain themselves, Salman?
So digitalization, for me, is becoming more important because Malaysia cannot just grow by adding more staff, adding more outlets. Instead, they need to produce the cake more value using the similar amount of resources, and that is what productivity really means to me. And when we talk about productivity, right, there's quite a huge gap between the MSME productivity and the overall economy activity. So for context, the MSME's productivity stood at 80,500 ringgit per worker in 2034, and the overall economy stood at 99,300 ringgit per worker. So we need to close that gap, via digitalization, because MSME is really important to economy, contributed 40% of GDP, and then about 50% of total labor force, and it makes almost all businesses registration in Malaysia, 96% coming from MSME. So when we talk about digitalization, it's not as, don't think like very high-tech stuff, very very fancy one. It's just as simple as, for food restaurant, it can be QR ordering, e-wallet payment, and then post system, and even basic inventory tracking. So it makes your life easier. Like your order directly goes to kitchen, and then you can reduce number of workers, you can save time, and importantly, you can capture the data. And then there's a lot of things that you can do with the data. Definitely, you can identify which menu the most popular one and which are not. And you can reduce wastage, because you can also track the inventory and tally back into your sale. In a way, you can manage the profit margin as well. And for other example, say for small retailers, platform like Shopee, like Foodpanda, and Grab, give them they can test the demand in wider market before eventually open the physical store. Of course, there are platform fees that you need to track and manage your profit margin. And secondly, in terms of digitalization, is also not just about theory. It's not about, because it's proven by data as well. I think some studies suggest an increase of 36 to 27% of productivity because of social media platform and also e-commerce. And I think World Bank also quoted 10% increase in productivity. Digitalization, not just like you opening TikTok account and then you claim that you're being digitalized, but you need to, because most MSMEs are already online on the front end, but you need to link those front end to the back end process, like basic accounting, like customer data, planning, inventory. Then you can see the bigger gain from digitalization. So don't just look digital outside, but you still do a manual stuff behind the scene. So overall, the simple analogy, I would say digitalization is just like adding a turbocharge to your car engine, meaning you still use the same car, driven by same driver, but you can go faster, you can go extra mile with the similar capacity of engine. So compared to 1.5 turbo and 1.5 NA, and you still pay the same road tax. So don't just work harder, but work smarter.
Yeah, well, that's a great analogy, except the turbocharged engine have to pay more for maintenance. So, yes, digitalization is fast becoming one of the key themes emerging from this year's findings, I believe, as you've alluded to. So, how are MSMEs now balancing this idea of caution with the need for them to still remain competitive? Because when you become cautious, you tend to not get too creative. You want to play safe, but at the same time, how do you stay competitive with new players who are looking at perhaps the market as an opportunity?
Okay, so I think from the survey, we can see that, like you said, the SMEs they are being cautious, but they are not being contractionary. So in order to remain competitive, they didn't abruptly cut down their employees because of concern over future talent shortages and the high cost of rehiring. So in a way, it shows that they are looking at this current situation or current challenges as something temporary, and they need to make sure that they are ready to come back when things improve. So in order to do that, they don't cut down immediately. So they try to retain first so that when things improve, then they can come back. marketing can make a comeback. And besides that, I think SMEs also explore other markets, not only domestic, even though it's still limited lah. Because if you look at the survey itself, only 9% exports. So the remaining are still very much focusing on domestic market. But those who export, they have multiple source of revenue. I mean, you spread the risk lah, and then they are capitalizing from the global supply shift, from this trade diversion, from this front end activity. So like when we talk about EAD, I keep on coming back to EAD because that's like the trend, I would say.
I think it's the blue-eyed boy of the
It's
economy
usually
right now.
affected by what's happening, right? So with what's going on at the US, of course, the court has ruled out that most of the tariff is illegal and all that, but the stress is still there, the concern is still there. So that's why most of the businesses, they try to sell things upfront to avoid. Of course, the court said so they didn't just sit and say, okay, the problem is solved. No, they actually can anticipate things can get even worse, and that's actually proven. That guy of yours, the favorite one, is keep on coming back with something new, right? That he said he also finding some loopholes where he can impose, and he came back and trying to use the false label accusation and all that, so that he can come up with something. He can continue to impose that tariff on us, right? So that's why we seen that our export growth in, like what someone said, E&E is like keep on growing double digit. Okay, that's one thing. And then also the trade diversion that I'm talking about, I can go back to accommodation. So far, in terms of the data, we had yet to see any significant impact from this US-Iran war on accommodation yet, because the tourist arrivals so far, based on the data and based on what Motek said, that there is still an increase, still a small increase compared to what it was last year. And we also noticed that the increase was contributed by, of course, our usual visitors like Singapore, Indonesia and all that, but there is also some visitors from Turkey come in. So some sort of diversion is also happening. I actually talked about this in a different platform before, that Malaysia is a halal economy. So we can be a substitute or alternative to Middle East countries. So now the Middle East is a bit unrest. So people may be scared to go there. Those who have booked, then they don't have choice, they have to go on. But those who didn't, but they plan to, especially Muslim travelers from other side of the world, so they would want to go to Middle East because it's easier. You can get halal food and all that. But then because things like that, then they might, move and come to Malaysia instead, because we are very famous with that. You can get a lot of other cuisine. Right?
Exactly. So yeah, that's one benefit being in Malaysia, where the halal economy is so huge, and it's a large chunk of not just food but also other products as well, like makeup, cosmetics and all that. So that is a great part of the halal industry. But let's talk a bit about internationalization, because when it comes to MSMEs, I don't know if your survey points to the direction that MSMEs are actually considering internationalization, because as it is a tough economy out there, and you also alluded to the fact that only 9% are exporting, right? So the rest of them are focused domestically. So when it comes to MSMEs, how well positioned are they to really diversify and capture other markets? Or is that even possible for an MSME with the scale and size that they currently have?
Okay, it's actually there is a little bit of issue on that part. That's something that we have to accept. It's not only about going abroad to international market. It is even within the state also. Because recently I met with state agency. So they told us that they had a problem in convincing these SMEs who has prospect. The business has prospect, especially food manufacturing. but they don't really, they are not so ambitious in sense that they don't really care about the packaging and all that, as long as there's a buyer, because there is a buyer. So there is a buyer from other state that take everything from them. They be like, you don't have to worry where your products goes and all that. As long as I buy, I pay you on time and all that. So that's it. They don't have to worry because they produce a lot of food and a lot of varieties and all that. And it's all sold out. There's always a people to buy, and they don't have that need to go even beyond other state,
Okay.
so to go beyond the country is another level of challenges are. But if it depends on where you are located as well. Like if you're located near the border and all that, then probably you can, they still consider exporting, So maybe if you're closer to Kelantan, if you're at Kelantan, closer to the Thailand border, so they might be easier for you to export. And even in Sabah and Sarawak, so you're bordered with Indonesia, Brunei. In fact, we noticed that there are some players that in FMB, so that export, they will be like FMB, not FMB manufacturing or FMB services. So I was like, FMB services, what do you export, right? I think I was thinking, and then when I look at those profile of those respondents, they are located at Sabah and Sarawak. So probably, you do catering businesses over the border, so things like that. But yes, it is hard, but it is not impossible. We try our best. I think in SME Bank also we have this export readiness program. They collaborate with Matrade, and it's not only that. There are a lot of other institutions, even Matrade itself have a lot of programs that try to make these businesses who we think they have hit certain threshold that they can actually export. Sometimes they can export, but they don't know how to export. So that is where we can come into the picture and try to, assist them on that part, because they, sometimes if you, maybe if you want to try to export agriculture products, then you have to go different ministry, and then there's a lot of bureaucracy. So they need somebody that can guide them. If I think the guidance is there, probably they are okay to go abroad.
So for PNB, do you see internationalization becoming an increasingly important strategy for these MSMEs? Because they are small, they're size-wise, and they're probably not as confident as MSMEs to go abroad. We heard even cross the border, state-wise is a challenge. So is it a strategy for them to consider at the scale and size that they are, or is it not?
Internationalization is becoming more important, not just about growth, but also about risk mitigation. So simple analogy is that you don't put all your eggs into one basket, because if that basket fall, semua telur akan besar lah. So simple analogy is that, you don't go into one market, because if that market goes into recession or tariff changes, you still have another market to rely on. And this is what we see from the latest tariff episode as well, where these big companies don't just sit back and relax and wait until the tariff disappear. So they diversify the market, diversify the supply chain, so that they still have other option to reel out their product too. And then the second thing to note here is Malaysia is in a good position where geopolitically neutral, meaning we are in a good terms with other country, but we are not tied to any bloc. For instance, last year, President Xi came to Malaysia in April, followed by President Trump. This sort of give us a sense that we are good with everyone, and that's why we see we have so many FTA, free trade agreement. In total, we have 17 FTAs. 8 is bilateral, and 9 is regional FTAs. And we have secured a deal with a big country like Australia, Japan, and we just signed the deal with UAE last year, and currently we are in negotiation with the EU as well. and so we hope to get that deal to get bigger market access for our MSMEs and our investors.
So that's the answer that I know a lot of MSMEs also want to hear, but they are also fearful when they hear these answers because there's a lot of requirements that go into going abroad. Not only do they have to navigate the various trade agreements, understand them, but they also have to come up with the capital to fund that move across the border and then sustain that business perhaps for a while before it turns profitable. So there's a lot of challenge for MSMEs to go abroad, but nevertheless, it is a strategy that you need to explore. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more about this entire conversation where we focus on the health check of the MSMEs in Malaysia, moving forward into a very exciting 2026. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to We Hear You. So yes, I get it. So far, the conversation has not been too bright. We haven't really explored opportunities. We've talked a lot about realities. So yes, the sentiment on the ground has been reflected well within the survey, and you can see where MSMEs are trending, where they're spending. It's mostly digitalization. And in this challenging marketplace, that is a self-preservation strategy. It's also a strategy to help secure their market share while helping them process that back-end lag and log that they usually have done on a manual basis. It is a challenging time, but it's also getting better. And with things improving in the Middle East, I think we're up for another period of boom moving forward. So let's look ahead. What are some of the major global and domestic developments that MSMEs need to actually be paying attention to from the next 12 to, let's say, 18 months, Saman?
For the next 12 to 18 months, I think MSME need to pay attention to anything that could impact their three key areas: cost, cash flow, and also demand. So the first major development that they need to watch is still geopolitical development, especially the Middle East conflict remain a central stage. Yes, like you mentioned, for now, market has taken some comfort and relief because the US and Iran signed the MOU to reopen a Strait of Hormuz, and that's why we see oil prices come down to below $80 per barrel, and the latest today is $72 per barrel. You know, there's always a risk of the escalation, right? And if that's happen, and if the war intensify and go deeper, and this where global oil inventory might also reach a critical point, especially in the fourth quarter. So for MSMEs, they still need to look into their input costs that we already discussed earlier. Because even the war ends, the supply chain will not recover overnight.
Right.
So it would take some time, 1-2 months, or maybe more. So they still need to find the alternative supply and keep diversify the market, and that's number one. Secondly, the major developments coming from the US politics and policy. So as long as Trump remain in place,
Oh man.
the policy direction will remain to be, unpredictable, especially on tariff. For context, there's still Section 232 and 301 still under review. 232 is about the strategic sectors like semiconductor, and 301 is about forced labor. So they already announced that actually, but that one is to replace IPA and reciprocal tariff. They also announced last year. So this is where the US midterm election
In November.
in November, very important. Not just for the US, but also for global economy.
Right.
Because it best to gauge the sentiment and popularity of Trump, and whether Trump still has support to push his agenda further. And if tariff get aggressive again, definitely will impact the export competitiveness and also the overall confidence. Hope did not go into that.
You did talk about checks in the mail, so I
And second, and the third development we need to watch, I think, is about central bank across the globe, and also currency movement. So under the current environment, inflation pressure is building up, and if inflation remains sticky, and this is where the central bank across the globe need to tame the inflation by hiking rates and being hawkish. So, usually when a central bank across the globe maintain the interest rate high for longer, is where it will pressure our currency ringgit. So where ringgit under pressure, this will impact the import becoming more expensive. And for MSME that rely more on import costs, they need to watch this development in terms of currency movement, and also they need to talk to their suppliers, right? And
we have a new Fed chair coming in.
yeah, it was to look into how they see, communicate.
He seems to be status quo so far.
Hopefully. Okay, the fourth development related to the domestic policy. As we approaching the budget 2027 that will now table in October. For MSME, they need to look into anything that could impact and could support their business under the current environment. Because at the same time, government has the so-called FRA, Fiscal Responsibility Act. They actually need to reduce the fiscal deficit further to 3% by 2028, from last year 3.7%. So there's a few permutation of doing that. Number one is, to reduce the government expenditure, especially the operating expenditure, and that might be related to subsidy as well. And then secondly, in terms of revenue, so they need to increase the revenue. And the third one, they just need to hope for the growth to be outperform, because growth is also a function of fiscal deficit. So for MSMEs, keep on the eye on the policy announcement, because that also could means a lot for your operational cost. And then the last development, I think, related to weather condition, right? You might heard the El Nino, and I think some headlines say, I think in Nikkei Asia mentioned about Godzilla El Nino. So it will be unusually strong, and some say worse than in 150 years. So we hope not going into that. I think because if condition become, the concern if condition become hotter and drier, this will impact definitely the water supply, and then the food production, and also food costs eventually. So for MSMEs, that really depends on water supply, fresh fruit produce, and also outdoor activities. They need to plan carefully, and need to talk to their suppliers as well. So overall, the next 12 to 18 months is all about how these MSMEs manage the uncertainties. So, yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of factors to consider, really. So what kind of support, really, can institutions offer to MSMEs as they chart these very uncertain waters still ahead?
Okay, if beyond financing is one of the thing, of course, but if it's beyond financing, then in terms of skills development, talent support, as well as technology adoption support, because most of the SMEs sometimes they just, for the sake of having that, they have that. Okay, just like sharing one of my experience, I went to tapao my food in normal F&B, not the high end one. So high end one, probably you are willing to wait because you can get relaxed and all that. So this is like the one that you go on daily basis, right? So they have this machine that can automate, not to say automate, it's just like the seal the
Packaging,
the
cup. All right.
So the one that you poke to,
Right.
they seal.
Right.
So they have that. But it actually takes time because I go there, instead of that person just, tied it up, and I have to actually wait there. He put there and then wait for the thing to seal. So actually, I don't know whether it does, because automation need to help you with two things. Whether it help you to cut costs or it increased the efficiency. But I didn't see that at that point of time. So I was like thinking, like sometimes in order for you to get financing, you need to have all this automation. That is one of your score, like scorecard, right? So sometimes they don't know whether it's actually helping them or not.
But they have it just to get the financing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the usage of robots in restaurants and all that, it has pro and cons, but it might not deliver what it needs to deliver.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
True. I think it's weird because still the robot comes, but they still have a staff to help carry the plate
And
over.
suddenly somebody cross it and
Right.
it stopped.
Right, it stops.
So that's why that kind of things is something that they need to be enlightened on. And then I think on the market access, actually like when government, credit this amount of money in monthly basis for you to buy your daily essential items, right? Like the 100 ringgit, that the monthly one is not for us lah. For some of the people that are eligible for that, and then like those that they gave us February last year, also towards the end of the year. So that kind of thing actually it helps retailers, businesses, not much, but they can benefit, even though it's just chunk of it. But it is government creating the platform, and then they maybe from the urban side it's a bit hard for a particular retail to get a bigger channel, but in the rural areas it can be very helpful. And then with the latest announcement, I think they said they want to get a lot more retailers on board, so it is creating a demand access there. And then not only that one is, we are talking about domestic one, and then the international one, of course, with all these export lady programs and all that. So that kind of support needs to be there, because they don't know, sometimes they have the capability, but they don't know how to do it. They have the capacity to improve, to generate more revenue and all that, but they just don't know how to do it. And then the third one is in terms of like ecosystem support. So most of the SMEs, they work in silo. So it makes them it makes it hard for them to integrate into a proper supply chain. So this is where we can have like those large players that where they get SMEs to supply them the inputs and all that. So something like a mentoring kind of program, so you help the SMEs to build their capacity so that they can, it's like a win-win situation. The large corporation can also benefit from undistracted supplies and to meet certain qualities, and at the end of the on the other side, for the SMEs itself, it helps them to increase their punya production more efficiently, right?
Because they have to live up to the expectations set by the larger corporation. So that's great. Echoing your sentiment, sometimes when MSMEs do things just for the sake of doing it, for example, ESG requirements, right? You'll find paper straws, which are not for the long run. You might end up adding paper to your diet inadvertently. So I don't know, paper straws, hopefully that's the thing of the
It's very
past.
sad for me, because I usually take long time to finish my
Right,
thing.
exactly.
So I talk, then at the end of the day, it's like, then I have to ask another one. So it, I don't know whether it
Has dissolved.
helps with the ESG or not.
It's probably dissolved into your drink, and you don't want that. So there you go. So I mean, things like that, perhaps there needs to be a reworking, but there's this story of resilience that has carried through many of our SMEs, and they've stood the test of time, the test of economic cycles, the test of Trump. He was here before. Although this version is a bit more drastic. So they've stood all these tests, and they've come to a point where they are definitely still here for the long run. How can they rework their business model or change the way they operate to stay sustainable in the long run? It's a different kind of economy now. It's more digital than ever before. The question of sustainable growth, is it still possible for years ahead?
Yes, I think businesses, they need to be agile in that angle. They shouldn't just rely on one revenue stream. They need to come up with a recurring revenue model. For example, I spoke to one business owner. They supply machineries related to agriculture to big players plantation big players in Malaysia. They imported that machines from foreign countries, that's Korea, Japan, and then they sell it. So it's just buy and sell services. Okay, but over time they notice that there is an opportunity because as long as it's under warranty, then probably if anything happens, they just get back to the supplier and all that, the manufacturers, right? So after that, if problem arises, then this company who bought it, they suffer a bit. They don't know, they don't get expertise that can operate that machine better and all that. So this supplier, they what do we say? They saw there is an opportunity that they can tag on. So what they did was they started to come in and provide regular maintenance, and then they also get spare parts. They supply the spare parts as well, and they also provide training and consultants. And there is also another business that I spoke to. This business is basically a vendor. So they sold a system to one of big institution in Malaysia. But the problem is the system is quite new to the market. But then they don't know how to operate. They need it, but they don't know how to operate it, the buyer. Okay. And there is only another big institution in Malaysia that is using that system. So what this vendor did was they go and approach those people who work under the institution that are using it and try to talk to them, get their expertise and recruit them as a trainer so that they can supply that service to them. So that's how they, think. That's, I think, a good business player's mind. They sense the opportunity when it comes in, they quickly react to it, and they can find solution to that. So they know, okay, this person is doing it, so I might just talk to them and get their price, and I just mark out a little bit. I'll provide it as a consultation and training, right? Yeah.
See a need, fill a need. I think that's basically the mindset that a lot more businesses need to have, not just in their core product, but also in their value-added services.
Correct.
So that's amazing. That's a great story. Despite all these headwinds that we've been talking about, what gives you the confidence that Malaysian MSMEs will still be able to grow and compete in the years to come?
Honestly, what makes me confident in MSMEs is the MSME themselves. They adapt quite quickly and they're close to customers. The MSMEs might not have a big capital compared to a big company, but sometimes they move faster. Like, simple analogy. So like when you're comparing truck and motorcycle. So a truck, you can carry more items, you can carry more weight, and you move. In strong wind, truck is still stable, right? But comparing to motorcycle, you can carry only one passenger, but in traffic jam, you move smoothly. You can be very nimble, and sometimes you boleh sampai lagi cepat daripada truck. So we cannot underestimate our MSMEs. They might be tougher than we think, right? And the second thing that makes me confident lies on our economic fundamental that still remain to be supportive. And I think MSME need to tap into this. Number one is investment. We are in the third investment upcycle, meaning we have seen very strong investment since 2022 and continue to record a historical high. And last year, the approved investment reached 426.7 billion ringgit. And the nature of investment was also quite different from the second upcycle, where at that time we focus more on mega project like LRT, MRT, and the TRS, but then ECRL. Now it's more towards the data centers like E&E, chemicals, machineries, and other high value manufacturing. And for MSMEs, it's not like you competing with those big companies like Intel, Infineon, AT&S, but you support them via the logistic, maintenance, packaging, even food supply, security, and other related services that could support that. Because MSME need to ask, how do I ride this investment wave? And Secondly, the opportunity lies on the tourism as well, like Marina mentioned just now. This year and has been extended to next year, the Visit Malaysia year. So the opportunity not just in hotels, also homestay, F&B, retailers, transport, and other related services to tourism. So for MSME, don't just wait for the tourists to come to you. You need to attract them, do more marketing, ensure that you have a good reviews and give the customer best experience ever. And the third thing that makes me confident is, I think Marina also mentioned this, it's about our export and internationalization. So E&E is the biggest component of our export, about 40 to 50% share. And we are part of the global E&E and also the semiconductor supply chain. So meaning we are currently benefiting from the global trend, so-called AI booms. And that's why we're seeing very strong E&E growth, double-digit growth for many, many months. So for MSMEs, it's not like you create a cheap company, but you support the ecosystem through, like I mentioned, maintenance, packaging, and business services, engineering support, and perhaps supplying those to those big manufacturers. Because MSMEs, as mentioned, makes up almost all business registration, but their spot share, like mentioned just now, still very relatively small. So they have more rooms to explore and go out into the emerging market that we talked just now. And one extra point just to add here, for MSME, don't work in silo, cooperate with others. Bak kata orang tua-tua lah, so I nak masuk sikit. Satu lidi je kalau dilentur, apa jadi? Patah. 10 lidi jika dilentur, retak lah. Okay, 100 lidi kalau dilentur, dia kukuh. So similar to businesses, you need to build a good relationship with everyone, be kind to everyone, be kind to your suppliers, your platform, agents, even your competitors. You can, manage disruption better.
You will cooperate with them, right?
But compete
In a healthy
way. So our outlook still remain to be constructive. I think MSME is close to customers, they adapt quite quickly sometimes, and our economic fundamental remain to be supportive to our economy.
Right. So those are all good reasons to be confident. If you are in the MSME space and you're looking to reach out, please do kindly connect with anyone from valid institutions which are able to help you, because of course you want to be pointed in the right direction by the right people with the right kind of support. And of course, this conversation is once again powered by SME Bank. Thank you very much to both my guests for being here and talking to us about this very important health check that MSMEs need. And we hope that will help them actually understand their own business and also the business trends. Thank you, Mazina. Thank you, Salman, for being here. And thank you for continually watching and supporting us. So at the end of every conversation, as we do on the show, we do have an autograph session with each of our panelists. So I've got the pen out, and this is photograph of both our guests. So we're going to turn it over to you first, Mazina, to pen your signature. And then we're going to ask Salman to do the same. And we're going to put it up on our wall of fame here for all our guests in this season. Thank you, Mazina. Salman, go right ahead. Thank you very much. And with that, we've come to the end of the conversation. We hope you benefited from this. Please do kindly comment, like, and share on any platform that you're using to view this experience. Thank you for your support so far, and We Hear You will be back with another episode soon. Don't go anywhere.